So what originally made you interested in the connection between the microbiome and eczema?
So I was born in Wisconsin with a dairy allergy. And if you don't know, if you're listening to this, America's dairy land is Wisconsin. So I firsthand experience when I ingest dairy, I would break out into hives. Like I had the gut skin connection like immediately since birth. It's on my like birth certificate in the paperwork, like dairy allergy, they knew. But like in the late 1900s when I was growing up, we really did nothing to manage it. I just ate dairy all throughout my childhood. And I would, sometimes it'd be worse than others. Like if I, had dairy and pizza and a bunch of sugar, like a soda, and then would run around like kids do, I would break out into hives. And it was like terrifying. And my throat would close up. And when my daughter was born, unfortunately, she had a dairy allergy too. And I read this article while we were trying to figure out, like, what tests do we do? What medications can she possibly get on? Because she had a very severe case of it, worse than mine. She had to go to the hospital a few times. And I read this article that there's a bacteria that reverses dairy allergy in children. And I was like, whoa, that is interesting. And the bacteria is LGG, and it's in Nutramigen. It's in baby formula, and it was in her formula too. However, it's a little bit tricky. This LGG, reverse dairy allergy in children, in a very tight window. You had to be like between 9 months and 12 months. If you were getting this formula with LGG that is not heated up, and we all heated up, that was shown in studies to reverse dairy allergy in children in a subset, maybe not 100%, but in that subset. So does it work when you're like 4 years old? Can you start taking LGG off the shelf, like Culturelle, and reverse your dairy allergy? No. It had to be like in that developmental period somehow. So they decided to go off and develop a drug based on that. It hasn't really been developed, I don't think, as a reversal of dairy allergy in children. But that kind of got me thinking, maybe I could try some of this. I didn't really know how probiotics work. So I went and ordered Lactobacillus rhamnosus online. That's the species. The strain is LGG, named after some famous scientists. It's the most, famous probiotic strain out there, most studied strain, LGG. I ordered something different by accident. I went on and I bought from Claire Labs, which is a great company. And I just ordered their standard Lactobacillus rhamnosus. And that healed up my skin in 4 days that I was not even trying to manage. I had a psoriasis-like condition on my knees and elbows and ankles. And it was just kind of scaly, patchy skin. And in 4 days, after like 15 years of having this, a probiotic cleared up my skin. So I brought this to my neighbor. And so I was like, could I share this with the world? So I'm a very curious person. I went deep into the literature. I read all these studies, and it was way over my head. So I hired an expert, and he connected us with these researchers out of Spain. And they had just published this breakthrough trial in JAMA Dermatology that showed that the probiotics that they developed, these 3 probiotic strains, was effective at creating clear, healthy skin in children ages 4 to 17 in a clinical trial published in JAMA Dermatology. So this incredible medical breakthrough. And we were able to license the strains from them and kind of develop the formula from that. And so it was like very exciting that we were able to find these evidence-based probiotic strains actually studied on people with an end result, a health outcome, and share it with the world. And sure enough, that was 5 years ago, 6 years ago now that was published in JAMA Dermatology. And so, yeah, it's been very
Stars
exciting.
really aligned. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember being at a conference. It was probably one of the SPD conferences, Society for Pediatric Dermatology, with a little bit of a buzz about probiotics. And in academia, it can be challenging for the to really trust. And so having articles in something like JAMA, and then now seeing just this explosion culturally of people really desiring more natural ways to heal our bodies, not wanting to use medications. Topical steroid phobia is a huge deal, something I talk about in my practice every day, as well as nutrition. Nutrition is a number one thing that parents come in and they want to ask, is there one thing to eliminate? And so challenging because everybody comes with a different microbiome setup, different entry into life, different risk factors. It is a lot of dads that have, oddly enough, and then the kids come in and they have this genetic predisposition. Um, a lot of the term microbiome can sometimes be a little confusing for parents. And then even that connection, I know that you said like 4 days later and you saw that improvement. And so, what do we really know about the microbiome and how that may be positively impacting eczema?
Yeah, so what I've learned is that the microbiome is a collection of all of the microorganisms that live in and on us. And these microorganisms, mostly bacteria, outnumber our human cells. 38 trillion bacteria and like 34 trillion human cells. And without these bacteria, we cannot survive. We can't walk out the door. We need to live in a bubble. So like this is what makes us human is this relationship that we have with these bacteria. And what's been happening over time is the environment has been impacting our microbiome on our skin. We have 1 trillion bacteria on our skin that protect us from the outside world. And we have 38 trillion bacteria in our guts. And what's interesting is that the gut microbiome is not just the microorganisms and the bacteria, it's also their DNA. And when you look at the Human Genome Project, it revealed that we only have 23,000 genes, right? But when you look at the gut microbiome, we have 3.3 million genes in our guts. And the way that I like to tell people to think about DNA is it's instructions. So in the gut, we have 3.3 million instructions coming out of there. And our human genes, 23,000. And in our humans, I don't think we have maybe 2 or a handful of instructions on how to process dietary fiber, for example. But in the gut microbiome, there's thousands and thousands of instructions on how to process dietary fiber and turn it into a health outcome. And what I learned as far as eczema patients and atopic dermatitis specifically is that the gut microbiome has been shown to be altered. So these bacteria that turn our food into butyrate and a positive health outcome are altered. So they no longer are able to produce that health outcome. So it almost doesn't matter like what your diet is. But, most families suspect that it's something with the diet, it's something with the gut. They don't understand what it is, and they're trying to change the diet. Maybe you have minimal results. But after you remove, the typical eggs, dairy, chicken, or whatever it might be, and you try to go down that pathway, you still have a portion of the population has an altered gut microbiome that can't produce the same health outcomes. So the solution from these researchers that sequenced over 10,000 gut microbiomes to reveal all of this information and all these instructions and what they revealed is that you can take a dietary supplement to help you process that and use the gut-skin axis through various mechanisms to achieve and promote healthy skin from the gut.
Yeah, I mean, there is very oftentimes kids who come in, families have already tried multiple diet eliminations, not helpful for eczema. Um, then, trying so many different products in order to heal the skin, both internally and externally, really without a strategy. So, when you think about Skinessa, how long do you think that a patient would need to use that before they see results? And is there a prevention piece that families should be thinking about, or is it really mainly when the problem is there?
Yeah, it's both. So we suggest 90 days to best results, but you might start seeing results after a few weeks. And that's based on the successful randomized clinical trial in the JAMA Dermatology. So, and there was a second study too on our ingredients in a different journal that saw results in 90 days as well. So it's based on the successful randomized clinical trials that we suggest 90 days to best results. However, you should start seeing results in a couple of weeks. And then it's really 45 days to 90 days where you should see the best results and the ultimate outcome.
And is there an age limit that Skinessa has?
So the ingredients were tested on ages 4 to 17, and we know the gut microbiome is still forming really before that, so it hasn't been studied. We don't know, what to suggest, from ages 1 to 4 or 1 to 3. We really don't know, and I'm not a doctor, and I'm not an expert on the microbiome, so I wouldn't know exactly. I would say, consult with your doctor or an expert to see, what they think as far as, if you should give a dietary supplement to any child. Before you start a dietary supplement with any child, consult with your physician.
I think that the good thing though about, Skinessa and the studies that go into it is that the safety as much as you can with the product is there, it's solid. And so for me, in clinical practice, I don't feel like I need to dive into um, very granular gut health testing before probiotics are started. Um, I especially like when you have a skin developed probiotic because you can go to the store in Sprouts or Whole Foods and see this whole just really overwhelming amount of probiotics. And so, what about Skinessa? I know you talked about the LGG. Um, what were the conditions that were kind of thought about with Skinessa and the product that you created?
Yeah, so first I would like to talk about the definition of probiotics, which are live microorganisms that deliver a health benefit when administered in specific amounts. And so that definition is by a research team of scientists at the International Association of Prebiotics and Probiotics. And they want you to know that probiotics are identified by their genus, species, and strain. So it's identifying those numbers and letters after the species, like in our example earlier where I said Lactobacillus rhamnosus, that's a species. Well, there's thousands of Lactobacillus rhamnosus strains on the shelves, hundreds on the shelves, that have all different sorts of health outcomes. So, it's very important to take and look at those numbers and letters after the species name. So LGG, Lactobacillus rhamnosus, LGG. We have two Lactobacillus rhamnosus, in our product. And, one of them, the I4036, you can see, oh, that one very specifically, uses this mechanism to promote healthy skin. So when you go to the grocery store and you see, or Amazon, and you see all of these probiotics, 99% of them have not been connected to a positive health outcome in a randomized clinical trial. So that is really
And there's
something. And so, like,
so many numbers
yeah, so
to
really,
try to memorize.
yeah, so really but that's really the key, is taking those numbers at the end of the strain and putting them, to the clinical trial, because there's, probiotic strains that have been studied on mood in randomized controlled trial and showed positive mood outcome. So it's tricky. Another way to think about it is, the word probiotics is kind of like the word medicine. Like, you wouldn't go to CVS and just try medicine, right? Like, what medicine are you getting? Are you getting headache medicine? Are you getting toenail fungus medicine? So that's like the thing that I learned that I didn't know. Like, in my story originally, I was like, I thought I was ordering LGG and I ordered something different. And that's kind of how I learned it. And then I was like,
Uh-huh.
well, in order to have a successful skin probiotic, all we got to do is bring Lactobacillus rhamnosus in here. No. I didn't know at the time that there's hundreds, if not thousands, of strains of Lactobacillus rhamnosus, all with different health outcomes, some with nothing, some that don't have a health outcome. So it's like, what is in that bottle? And if you look at the back of the
Right.
bottle, a lot of times they'll just have a long list of species there and no strain identified. And
Yes.
according to the definition, those aren't even
Right.
probiotics.
Yeah. And it's important to know that there is that granular understanding that when you are choosing a skincare product, you can't just blindly choose any probiotic. You've focused it specifically on skin. And because I don't have the time, the knowledge, the insights, I just go to a product that I, ultimately trust. We've been partnered with NIA, which is a organization that typically, people who love treating eczema patients are going to come around and do as much as we can to improve their health outcomes. So that's why I really think about Skinessa and really trust your product over other products for sure. So thank you for having the mistake of getting the wrong product and having the right neighbor to kind of dive into how to do that, right? It's just such a a God thing, right? So what do you think that would be the biggest mistake that families make with probiotics with eczema? If you could think of one rapid fire off the top of your head.
Yeah, I think it would, like you said, it would just be going to the store and just buying something randomly off the shelf that has no health outcome, labeled on the bottle. Like, what is it for? You know what I mean? It could
Yeah,
be for
yeah,
anything. I
yeah.
think when you go to the store and you buy probiotics, they're generally regarded as safe. So you're just trying, you know, any type of probiotic with no health outcome connected to it. So it's like, it's not even really a probiotic. Technically, it's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
a generally safe bacteria, which we already have
yeah.
38 trillion down there. So it's like it really needs to have the strain designation connected to a health outcome where you can feel
Hmm.
safe about trying it for yourself.
What would you say to a family who is hesitant about starting something? They've probably tried so many different things, maybe a strategy around it or reassurance with what people tend to see or experience.
Well, the great thing with trying Skinessa is that, based on the two successful randomized control trials, there's no known side effects. And we've been selling it for many years. And there's just no reports of side effects, which is great. So it's little to no risk. And it either works or it doesn't. And when you buy from the website, we kind of pride ourselves on, if it doesn't work, get a full refund without having to return the product. It doesn't work for everybody, and it's expensive. We understand that. We go to the NEA every year, 6 years running. So it's challenging. Really a 90-day trial might be $150, something like that. Or, we also have the kids version. It might be less. It could be $100, kind of in that range. It's expensive, and if it doesn't work, that sucks. $150. So it's like, just get a free refund, just get a refund without having to return the product. Just open the bottles, we say, take a picture and send it back to us so we don't get scammed. That happens too. So as long as you dump out the bottles and say, hey, it didn't work for me, we refund you. And it's a challenge. It's also the reason why we're not on Amazon right now, because it's hard to do that on Amazon. And then they're really
Yeah,
Amazon customers over there, so it's a challenge now because we would like to be back on Amazon. People like to buy over there,
sure.
but then we kind of lose control of the customer service chain because those are Amazon customers, and I don't know if people really know that or not. And Amazon's good to do refunds too, but they don't have that same setup where you can just send us a picture. Because people, I have kids, and you're busy. You don't have the time to go to the post office and buy, to return everything. It's just, I think we pride ourselves on that, and talking to people firsthand too. I know the challenge of it, and because people are willing to try anything, right? You have to try all sorts of things,
Yes.
and so it can get expensive. And we're trying to keep the costs low, especially the people that are with us for many years.
Yeah,
Some people swear by it.
yeah,
They're
I've
like,
noticed.
yeah, and that's part of the prevention side. We're trying to get the costs lower. It's just very expensive to get in front of people. It costs us a lot of money to advertise.
Yes, yes.
Where
Well,
if we were able to distribute, right into pharmacies, which we're expanding into now, or something like that, we could bring the price down, because that's the preventative side, right? It's like you have this problem, you discover it, and you balance out your gut microbiome, you promote a healthy skin from the inside, you achieve healthier skin. But now you really should continue that dietary supplement on, it depends. Like, do you need to take it every day forever? Probably not. Maybe you could go every other day. Maybe you could stop it for a while. People come and go. And then there's other people like it worked for me. I was suffering for 30 years. I was suffering for 50 years. I'm taking this every day, no matter
Yeah.
what. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And that's an eczema person's journey, right? Everybody needs a customized plan. There needs to be a strategy and understanding scientifically, in my experience, as to why you may choose things. And just again, really appreciate that you created a product like this because it's easy to trust it and it's specifically for the problem that we're both have a passion about trying to fix.
yeah.
So,
And I think I can talk for a minute too about something you mentioned previously that you don't do gut testing in the office, and why I think that's probably the right call. Like here's like how detailed that it can get and into the minutia. Like so they discovered that folks with atopic dermatitis have an altered gut microbiome. And specifically, they discovered there's this species, Faecobacterium prausnitzii, and in normal healthy people produces butyrate, and it's a highway to health. However, if you did one of those gut tests for eczema patient, you would see Faecobacterium prausnitzii in there, and well, I don't see a problem here. Maybe it's not the gut. However, if you go into the details deep, if you were a microbiologist, you would see that Faecobacterium prausnitzii has been altered over time. It's a different strain. So when you're testing at the species level, you'll be able to see that, oh, they have the healthy bacteria in there. Should be a health outcome. Nothing to see
mhm,
here. But
mhm,
Faecobacterium prausnitzii in eczema patients is altered. And so you don't get that health outcome. It's not producing that butyrate as effectively as,
mhm.
somebody that has healthy outcomes all the time, a healthy person. I'm speaking
Yeah,
very generally here,
sure.
but that's kind of it. It's like you can really get into the weeds and like how detailed it is, and the solution is what the researchers that we've partnered with is a dietary supplement
Mhm.
to address those imbalances in the gut microbiome. And then another thing that I learned is why that is occurring is the lack of dietary fiber over generations. Really, since the invention of the refrigerator, the gut microbiome has had pressures on it from the environment where we're not eating enough fruits and vegetables, and our gut microbiome is not only getting altered, but it's going extinct. So that was one of the great revelations of the Gut Microbiome Project when we compare ourselves to human beings on the other side of the planet that are still eating dietary fiber like we did tens of thousands of years ago. They have hundreds of more species than we do in our Western guts. And you can see even modern studies of Asian immigrants coming over. Within 2 or 3 generations, they're becoming obese and ill as their gut microbiome falls apart, goes extinct, gets altered, based on our Western diet.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I really try to focus families on a whole food, diverse diet of all the foods. You need food to nourish your skin, nourish your body. Unless you have an anaphylactic response, it should be a diversity. I had a friend who I know from Nia, and they did do a full diet elimination of dairy as an adult. And then it actually ended up swinging that person all the way into more of an anaphylactic response, where before they didn't have that issue. And so then we were, having food together and had to be very strict with their waiter to say, make sure that there is absolutely no dairy in the pan because I anaphylax. I have an actual true allergy to it. And so while that's an extreme case, I kind of share that with my families because so many families are coming in with complete diet eliminations of everything possible. Moms are barely eating anything because they're breastfeeding kids. And that's where I'm trying to bridge the gap of what is reasonable to do for kids at a young age and just going back to those basics of diversity of foods, whole food diets, and until something shows up as a problem, then don't strictly eliminate from your gut. It's important to have that diversity. And so, finding that partnership with families to trust a product, trust me, develop the strategy is really important. And layering in skin nessa. I just had one of my patients back who had, I'd given the sample. So, thank you for giving samples to clinics. Of the children's probiotic, and that kiddo is doing really well. You've got my strategy the skin, and they've been using the children's probiotic alongside. Um, Tolerated really well, no side effects, like you said, and getting to healing. And so the partnership of the two is really important. And again, people are just so hungry to be able to heal our bodies from the inside out as well. So really excited about having your product and the tools in our toolbox for
Another
yeah,
thing that we
that's
could
good
layer on
stuff.
top of that, to use your word, is the overuse of antibiotics is also creating a
Oh
lot of
yes.
pressure on the gut microbiome. When our gut bacteria are getting altered and going extinct from the lack of dietary fiber, and then we go into the doctor as a kid and we get antibiotics for a viral issue, that is going to impact your
Yeah.
gut microbiome too, and it's a real problem.
It is, yes, especially even like the moms who have baby in utero, they need antibiotics for any reason. And parents, they really are trying to do so much to be able to improve and prevent. And there's just, we're having to really fight against kind of our Western medicine mindset of just giving the medicine, not necessarily thinking about the consequences. And yeah, I do see a lot in my clinic where antibiotics given really early does seem to really negatively impact the gut and then just a harder time in general with their skin.
Yeah,
So,
it's a
yeah, it's a
real
good point.
ecosystem. That's the way to think about it. Is like it's a jungle down there, right? And a healthy ecosystem is a diverse ecosystem. So lots of trees and
Yes.
plants and animals and insects, and the more the better. Versus like a
Yeah.
desert with trash laying around. So it's
Yeah.
like you want
Yeah.
to try to get to that jungle level, and the best way to do that is to eat a wide variety of fruits and vegetables that agree with your system, and supplement
Mm-hmm.
with an evidence-based, probiotic for skin.
Well, thank you so much for jumping on to talk. I know it was probably a random email like, hey, this girl from NEO wants to talk to you more about your product. So thanks for being willing and spending the time. It's nice to hear from you personally and just the background of the product and how it's really impacted you and then, hundreds of patients. So thank you for what you do.